Hello, and welcome to this latest webinar, The Benefits of a Bilingual Education. And I'm here today in France. It's the ICS Côte D'Azur school we're visiting today, which is a bilingual, co-educational IB World Primary School, serving the international and local community in the Sophia Antipolis region, southwest of Nice, which sounds absolutely wonderful. And I'm just going to introduce you to, with a warm welcome, Gina Bianchi, who is head of school.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for inviting me.
Yes, well, it's wonderful to see you, and it sounds like a wonderful school and a wonderful location to be based in. So we're thrilled to learn more about it. So you only just joined in September, is that right?
This July, yes, this past summer.
This July, great, wonderful. Right, so it will be really great just to have a little overview of the school and the curriculum, and I think you've got a really helpful slide to do that. So that'll give our parents and employers and the relocation professionals who support them some context about the curriculum and the school. Aha, there it is.
Yes, great. So we are an IB accredited school offering the primary years program. We're a 50-50 program, so all of our students learn every day in both French and English. We have around 200 students ages 3 through 11. And I think right now we have about 37 nationalities in our program. And we're also a proud member of Globeducate.
Which is a school group, not just in France, but around the world.
It is. It is. I believe there's about 60 schools, over 60 schools right now, part of Globeducate.
So Gina, tell us a bit about you and how you came to be at a bilingual school in France.
Sure. So I'm originally from the Chicagoland area. My background was actually in social work. And I had some languages a little bit when I was in high school and college, but I never really had that opportunity to travel or live abroad. Till my mid-20s, I had an opportunity to be a teaching assistant in a college, in like a middle school. So I was placed in Normandy and got to spend a year in a college doing that. It was such a great opportunity. I loved France. And so I spent the next year pursuing French studies so I could really work on my language skills. After that, I came back to the United States, and I probably should add, I also came back with a French husband. And I'd really loved working in education. So I decided to pursue a teaching degree, at which I got a job as a teacher originally in the Milwaukee French Immersion program. So it was my first bilingual program where I taught for 5 years before taking on the role as a principal, where I was a principal for 8 years. A really great program. And I stayed in Milwaukee for that time until I moved to New Orleans, which is also a great city, where I worked at a program called the Lycée Français de la Nouvelle-Orléans, which is also a bilingual program. But it is a French accredited program. So really following the French curriculum. So I learned a lot about the French curriculum, where when I was in Milwaukee, we were really following the American curriculum, but just in French. So I was there until I was recruited to come to this beautiful school in the beautiful place of the world at ICS Côte D'Azur, where I've been since July.
Brilliant. And so a really solid background in both the French system and American system, international, all brought together in this wonderful school. So there are a lot of different models, I think, about bilingual education. It can be a bit confusing for people. So do you think you could just give us a sort of overview, if parents are looking for a bilingual education, what sort of models they may come across?
Sure. And I'll begin by kind of just saying, in a bilingual program, what makes it really a bilingual program is that they're really learning academic content in the languages, which is very different from taking a traditional French class or a Spanish class, really just studying the language. And the idea of bilingual program is they're learning the content, not studying the language. They learn the language through learning the content. Mm-hmm. There's many different program models out there. I think we've really evolved in the program models where we're really learning that knowing a language is really an asset. But taking a look at a few different models, we do have more of the traditional bilingual programs, and we're seeing less and less of those, thankfully. But that would be a program where the idea is to phase out a child's natural language. So, for example, in the United States, a traditional bilingual program are often Spanish programs where they take Spanish learners and start teaching them in Spanish and then slowly phase out the Spanish by second grade so they're just speaking in English. That would be one model. Another model is like where I taught in Milwaukee is what we call like a 90-10 full immersion program. And that's where you take students in the United States that would be taking English speaking students where the majority of your population don't speak a foreign language yet. And you really immerse them. And so they call it 90-10 because it's about 90% of the instruction is taught in the foreign language, slowly adding more and more English to it as time goes on till about middle school where it reaches 50-50. Next, I'll mention 50-50 programs, which is more like what we do here, where there's really an equal balance between the two languages. And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes in programs like this, you have native speakers on both sides. Not everyone has to be a native speaker, but you will usually find that. And finally, there are some bilingual programs out there to help students that are starting at a later age. Some families are later to the game of doing that. We call that later immersion, where they start in middle school and some of the content is taught in another language.
So what's the model that you use at your school then?
Yeah, so our model is a 50-50 program. We choose to have separate French and English teachers, and students follow one day in French, followed by one day in English. And our students are taught all the content areas in both languages. Even our specialists are taught in another language. So we have sports, or PE is taught in English. And we have a French teacher that's teaching music. All of our English and French teachers teach arts through our STEAM program. So they really get access to both of those languages.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think are the benefits of a bilingual education? A little question.
Yeah. Well, this is a topic I always like to talk about because there's so many benefits and we keep seeing more and more research coming in. I think last night I was scrolling through my phone and I was reading something about how now they think that, to avoid Alzheimer's, it's better to know a language than even taking medication for it. It can really delay the onset. But being the fact that I work in a school, I like to talk about the academic outcomes. We know there's very, very strong academic outcomes for students that are bilingual learners. Even if there's a little gap in the beginning, while students are really taking the time to acquire both languages, we see that bilingual students outperform their monolingual peers over and over again. We see that in both math and literacy. And then thinking outside of just the academic benefits, we know that there's so many cognitive advantages as well. We see students that are bilingual sometimes have increased focus, an ability to multitask. They can be more flexible with their thinking. Some of the advantages I think that are so important, especially as a mom, thinking about is bilingual students are oftentimes more creative. They can address problems in different ways. Also, research has shown that students that are bilingual are often more empathetic. They can see things from other perspectives, which is really an important skill that we know is going to be even more and more important in our world today. At our school, and not all schools have students that are so international, but if you are in a bilingual program that's very diverse, like ours, where we have students from so many different countries, it really helps them see a global perspective. It helps them really put themselves in the place of someone else. So they really learn to appreciate others' differences. And then I think another advantage is really thinking about, college and career opportunities. When students learn multiple languages, they have an opportunity to go to many, many different universities. And that's just a huge asset to have. And then career opportunities, very, very important as well on both sides of it. I think that's something about 64% of jobs right now in France, they're looking for people to have a pretty good level of English. And I think it's only about 25% of job seekers right now in France have that English proficiency. So we know that that's a huge benefit. And then on the French side, for our expats that are here, it allows their students, to attend the local universities if they want to, and then enter even the workforce in France.
So what do you think parents need to look for when they're choosing a program, a bilingual program, French, English?
Yes, so that's a good question. I mean, I think, again, as a parent, I know the importance of really making sure your child is in the right school. And I think when you're relocating or moving to a new place, there's so many tasks that you have. But I think once you know your children are okay and they're in the right space, it sort of helps make all those other tasks come together. So I think in general, it's so important when you're looking for any school, whether it's bilingual or not, to really put a list together, I would say, of your non-negotiables. You know, these are the things we really want to see in a school. And then maybe put a list together of things that are priorities, you know, and that could be, do you want monolingual or bilingual? Do you want a program that has the arts? Do you want, you know, what is it important to you that there's a really engaging teaching style to it? Is it important to have extracurriculars, you know, that sort of thing? And then I would say going on a tour is so important. I know sometimes people can't go abroad just for a tour. Many schools offer online tours. I know we do as well. And that tour is important because then you can ask all those questions you thought of ahead of time. And I always try to tell parents, if you think of something after the tour, because there's always that question that pops up right after you went on that tour, that it's, you know, always okay to go back to the school and say, hey, you know, I have some additional questions. For me as a head of school, I always try to meet with parents. So I would always say, you know, if you can ask to speak to the head of school, if you haven't, even if it's for a brief interaction, just to kind of get a good feel of the direction of the school. I know many schools offer taster days. That can be especially important if you're looking for a bilingual program. That way, your child really has an opportunity to experience a day in what it looks like learning another language. In terms of bilingual programs, it's important to ask, you know, first of all, sounds like a simple question, but what age did they take you in? You know, our program takes in students all the way through. However, if students are entering after the age 7, which is for us, I believe, year 3, we offer additional support classes, intense language classes, to really make sure students can access the content. So that's really important, depending on the age of your child, to ask about that. You want to find out more about the program. You know, how often is the language taught? Are they taught both subjects in both languages? You also might want to know, are they native speakers or fluent speakers? Those are all really good questions to ask.
Yeah. And by early years at your school, the children start at age 3. Is that right?
Yes. Our littlest ones start at age 3.
Yeah. So for parents, both working parents, that can be really, really helpful, can't it, as well?
Yes.
Them so young. Yeah. Great. Now, you're in this wonderful part of France, which I was learning from one of your sister schools in the group, Mouvain, that this is the sort of centre of innovation. France is very tech innovative area. So that must be really great for you, and the importance of STEAM, which I see is highlighted on your website. So first of all, can you tell us, just for parents who don't know, what STEAM stands for, and then what are the benefits in living in this sort of Silicon Valley of France?
Yes, great. So STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And I believe it was more recently the arts was put in there, really understanding that idea of, you know, in STEAM is the idea of creativity and innovation. So like you said, we are located really in a great hub of that. So it's really great for our students when we're working on our interdisciplinary units, for our trips in the community. There's many different areas for us to go to expose our students to what that looks like on a daily basis. We also have a STEAM hub, which is an area, and STEAM happens everywhere, I always say, but we do have this beautiful space with many different materials so students can come directly working with their teachers in there. We even have a 3D printer in there. So students will occasionally go with their teachers at different times. We also have a STEAM coordinator who helps organize different programs for our students to really expose them to that. We also have a STEAM club. So our students starting in HPY 3 or intergrade PY3, primary year 3, can choose to go into a club where they have additional activities that they can do. And we also have a robotics club. In fact, we have a competition coming up in about 2 weeks where some of our year 5 and year 6 students will go to Paris and compete with some of our other sister schools in Globeducate. So they build robots and learn to program them. So it's very engaging for our students.
And isn't that that's association with Lego education?
Yes.
Right? Yes, I saw them. They look so wonderful.
Yes.
It's great fun. And also you're in Apple School as well? Is that right?
Yes, yes. So our teachers are trained in certain technologies that support our iPads. Our students do engage in iPads. We try to have a balance with technology. We also don't want students on screens too much. So we really use those especially to help personalize learning.
You're having some exciting work, more building work going on in the school. So I think, is that going to enhance more the innovation?
Yes, yes. The Globeducate is committed to about $1 million worth of work going on in our building. So it's going to primarily work to redo our early years program. So we will see 5 new classrooms set up. And the setup is really to support both language learning as well as the PYP program. So we want spaces within the classrooms where students are working together in groups, really initiating, where students are really at the center of their learning. We also want immediate access to the outdoors. So I'm looking behind me, but here behind me, students will actually be able to go inside and outside between the teacher and the teaching assistant. So really understanding learning can be fluid. We want students to really spend most of their time really engaged. We want to, work with the curiosity that students naturally have in them, especially at that young age. We want to really see a lot of movement and access to outdoors. Another exciting piece has to do with language, that our classrooms will have sliding doors to connect both the French classroom and the English classroom to support our bridging technique, which is a technique, I think, created by Karen Beeman, who's a language expert in the United States. But it's the idea, and you'll hear about this a lot now. I think a lot of places call it translanguaging. But it's the idea that we used to think when kids learned a language, it was in a specific spot in their brain, and French was in this spot and English was in this spot, for example. And we know now that's not true, that students really leverage all their language capacities when they're working on something. And we still want to put students really with the French teacher and really work on the French and keep it in French and English in the English. But what we do want to do is create intentional opportunities for students to really come together with the French and the English and really compare and contrast the languages, the spelling, the grammar, the vocabulary, and be intentional about that. So the sliding doors will provide those really important opportunities to do that.
That sounds fascinating. And then the whole outdoor and the outdoors aspect of the school, which I think a lot of schools experience, and particularly during the COVID years, how important outdoors play and work was, and for well-being. So I think the school has quite an emphasis on well-being as well as the outdoors. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I can talk about both of those. So first, I'll talk a little bit about our outdoor learning. We are located in a beautiful forest area. So it's really important that we're taking advantage of that as well. So I talk about outdoor learning. When we're thinking about outdoor learning, it's really the idea that within our units that we're learning, there's just naturally connections with the environment. So based on whatever unit they're studying, they might take that learning outdoors. I can give you an example that I saw last week. We had our early childhood children were learning about capacity and volume. And so they took that outside where they got to play with water and sand and containers and really touch and feel and see what that looks like. So whenever we can, we provide opportunities for that. We also do forest walks where students are taking the learning a little bit deeper into the forest. And then I like to talk about also, it's very, very simple, but just learning outside. So that means we're going to take whatever content we're doing, and just because it's beautiful outside in a natural setting, that could be simple as a read aloud, and we're just going to bring that outside. We also have a beautiful pergola, so we can actually have a little classroom outside as well.
And a wonderful mild climate, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, great. Brilliant. And then just a bit about the location for people who don't know. But I mean, in France, you've got just down the road, where are families going to say? I was having a quick look on the map. Your address is Valbonne, is that right? And then
Yes.
you've got Antibes, you've got Nice. Where else might people?
We have Biot and Mougins are also two areas right by here.
So that's where people are likely to settle, where families.
That's for more.
Are they good communities, or welcoming? And
yes, they're very welcome communities. You will find there is an Anglophone community in all of those areas, as well as, of course, the local French families. But yes, they're very welcoming, beautiful areas to live.
Yeah, and I would imagine plenty of culture and leisure and a good lifestyle for the whole family.
It really is. It's very dreamy for my whole family.
So you're enjoying the transition.
Yes. And I have my little one here with me, is in the Primary Years 3 program. So that's it's been great to see him adjust. And he's been very, very happy here, which I guess I can add a little bit, going back to that culture of care, which is just so important. I know this morning I was coming in with my son, and there was a little girl that had arrived early. So I said, come on, you could come in with me. And she came inside and she said, I'm just so excited for school to start. I love school. And I just think that goes to the culture of care, which is, I mean, you just see it when you walk through the building here. And I think it comes with, the beginning piece is students feeling welcome and students feeling like they belong here. And it's an emphasis on social skills, but also on relationships. And that's relationships with the students and relationships with their families. I always tell our families, if your child ever comes home and says they don't feel like coming to school, you contact us right away, because we are the kind of school they should love learning and love coming to school every day.
And where do the children go on to from here, from you? They're at age about 10, 11 when they move to the next school?
Yes, that's also a great question, because I know, after you have your child settled in a primary school, knowing where they go afterwards is just so important. I'd like to think that because they're in a bilingual program, they really have as many opportunities as they possibly can ahead of them. They can, many of our students go to the local bilingual schools for middle school and high school. Some of our students choose to go to our sister schools, both Murchie and ICS Nice. What's really great is all of our students that leave and complete our program have guaranteed spots in both of those programs. Some of our students may choose to go to the local French school. Some of our students go abroad. So there's quite a number of choices for our families. And what we try to do, in fact, I had some of those, we call them accompaniment meetings. I had some today. So it's a 1.5-year process. We really work with our families to make sure we're helping them identify the strengths of their children, help, get a feel for where their parents are hoping that they will go to. And we really work hand in hand with them to really prepare them, make sure they have those choices in place, and make sure the students are ready for that transition.
And for families moving out of the area, Globeducate has got schools all over the world.
They do. So it's a huge advantage of being part of a network, both for us as a school, because we are able to share so many resources. Our students are able to do exchanges. They've just had a virtual exchange when they were doing their exhibition, which is their sort of capstone project. They were able to do a virtual exchange with the school in Italy, which was really great for them. Our staff can even do exchanges. So we can learn from each other in different schools and participate in many different events in these different countries. I know right now we have debates coming up. But then, yes, for our families, an option to, continue in another Globeducate school. While they might have different programs, they really all support some of the same themes that I think is really important for international programs.
Brilliant. And just to sum up, what do you think is the most useful thing to know about your school for parents listening in and trying to decide where they might send young children to school in France?
Yes. Well, I think, I would say one of the most important things just to know that I think at ICS Côte D'Azur, students really complete our program, not only having just the academic skills that they need to be successful, but also the linguistic and cultural and social emotional skills that they really need to be successful in this ongoing, forever changing global landscape.
Yes, brilliant. So, young global citizens,
yes,
certainly start life at Côte D'Azur. Well, thank you so much, Gina, and wish you well for the rest of the academic year. And
thank you so much.
Wonderful. I'm sure everybody would love to come and visit.
Well, we encourage them to come by. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Pleasure. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
So we've been talking to Gina Bianchi, head of school, and you'll find her details there. And please do look up the website and find out more. It's really fascinating to have someone who's got the American experience of teaching French and bilingual in America and coming over to France. So that's a wonderful insight to share. I'm Fiona Murchie. I'm the managing editor of Relocate and Relocate Global. We have a specialisation in education and schools and love to explore these through our international education and schools programmes throughout the year. So you'll find lots of resources on our website and in our guide to international education and schools, and our featured schools who, like this school, are very keen to welcome relocating families and support those moving around their country or region. So here are the details of how to get in touch with ICS Côte D'Azur, and Iris Govern is the admissions manager. She'd be pleased to hear from you. Here's just a summary of what we do at Relocate Global and Think Global People. Join us for our online schools fairs in the spring and autumn, and enjoy education supplements, our digital magazine and e-newsletters. And please do check in on our website to find plenty of information about our featured schools offering an international education around the world.